Hey guys, this video we're going to talk about building and setting up a retro Steam box. So first of all, I'm sure some of you guys are like, what is this? This isn't an ancient electronic. This is an old, piece of hardware. So I have three things to say on that. One is the use of it is for something sort of kind of retro-y. Number two is, as far as computers go, something like this from around 2008-ish is pretty ancient in the computer world. And three, if you look at my little tag, it's like retro computing, gaming, and a little more. Well, consider this a little more. From time to time, I do want to do some newer hardware sort of stuff. Although the bulk of my stuff would be, is retro older stuff. But anyways, the story behind this machine is, a couple months ago, a little bit before Christmas, there's a lot of talk about Steam machines and Steam boxes, and I was like, oh, what is this? And I go, and they're all pretty expensive, and it's just, I don't know, people were kind of treating them as sort of like their own thing, or their own little console thing, and I don't know, to me it's like, it's a PC. It's just a PC, and it's pre-put together for you, so you pay a premium, and it has Steam OS on it. You can build one yourself for cheaper. I don't get what all the fuss is about. And so I started thinking, like, well, there are, I used to be really, I like stuff physical. I like to have my physical games, but even I have to admit, things are maybe slowly really heading digital, and there are a lot of good games that are digital download only, or that have a very limited physical release. And those are the kind of games I sort of play on Steam. I play the littler indie retro style games, like 8-bit, 16-bit style games. And so I was thinking, well, I would like to put together like a kind of a home theater system slash Steam box for my needs, for retro Steam games. And I wanted to see if I could do that kind of on the cheap. And this is kind of the amalgamation of those efforts. Your efforts and what you spend on it may vary depending on your needs and your luck. I lucked out on a lot of components on this thing. I've spent under $100 putting this together. And it's a pretty decent machine for what it does. It plays all my retro style Steam games just fine. So I'll just get into it first. I kind of like this case. It's a little, the silver I could do without. I would have preferred black just because it would be easier to get parts. But, it's little, but it's not like micro. So I don't have to use like low profile RAM, low profile video cards. I can use standard size cards. Has a little USB thing on the front. The floppy drive, it came with the case, so, I'm never going to use it for this machine. I paid $3 for this case at a swap meet. So, it can go either way. It can go as a desktop style or a tower. I have it set up as a tower. The DVD drive here, this is from an old Gateway machine. It's not too easy to come across silver faceplate DVD, CD-ROM drives. And this is IDE. It supports SATA. I wanted a SATA drive, but again, realistically, I pretty much use this to install the OS. I'm probably not going to use it again. I'm not going to use this as a DVD player or even a Blu-ray player. This is strictly really a stream device and for low-demand Steam games, retro-style Steam games. Another thing about this, cool thing about this is apparently I didn't know, other people in the household watch Hulu and Netflix and stuff, and I do too time to time, but I'm not a huge TV guy anymore. But apparently there are stuff that's web only, so that this comes in handy. This streams stuff pretty good too. Back, nothing too fan. There's two things for fan. I haven't found fans yet this size. It doesn't need them, but it's nice. Power supply. It's one of those like micro ATX power supplies, 500 watts. Nothing special. I paid $20 for it on eBay. I don't know. Maybe it will die in the next couple months. Maybe it'll last me a couple years. I don't know. But so far, it's been fine. I don't have a back plate for this. Don't really need one. There's where my video card goes. I uninstalled it to show you on the video. But yeah, just, you know, audio. You got your Ethernet, USB, internal. There's onboard VGA, PS2. Nothing special. Don't need anything special for this machine. So let's look at the insides. So here are the insides. Probably. The motherboard is a DG31PR. It's an Intel motherboard. I found it in another. It's gonna fall. There we go. I found this motherboard in sort of another PC, so I guess you can almost consider that maybe like free. It's an okay motherboard, nothing spectacular, but don't need anything spectacular for this machine. CPU, I'm running an Intel Core Duo at 2.5 megahertz. I don't remember the exact CPU number, but it's a 2.5 gigahertz. Oh, sorry, that would be really slow. 2.5 gigahertz quad core. So, you know, outdated by today's standards. You're not going to be playing, you know, Witcher 3 on this thing, but for streaming, you know, even high def streaming, and you know, those retro style games, it runs just fine. PCIe slot, you got some PC slots. There's another, I think that's PCIe ×1. I don't have anything installed here. I'm just using onboard audio and the video card. I'll get to that in a minute. So I have two hard drives, and both of my hard drives on this thing are hooked up via the onboard SATA. Now up here in this slot, the 3.5 inch slot, I have a compact flash, not a compact flash, sorry, a solid state drive in here. Probably can't see it, but it goes down in here. It's just a 64 gigabyte SATA 2. And I wanted to put that on there because I wanted something that felt more like a console. Since it's going to be hooked up to the TV, I wanted something that would boot up really fast. And all that's on there is the OS. I'm running Windows 10. I looked at SteamOS. It's still in beta, I think. It didn't really do anything for me. I think privacy issues aside with Windows 10, it works fine. I think it's kind of a slick interface. I think it works fine just for light web browsing on the TV, retro Steam games, and streaming like Netflix and Hulu and stuff. So I mean, it works fine. For data for the games and stuff, I have under here, can't see it again, I think it's like a 250 gigabyte SATA traditional type hard drive. So really the solid state drive was like 20 bucks maybe on eBay. I had the traditional SATA hard drive. So not a lot of money put into this thing. 4 gigabytes of RAM. There's only 2 RAM slots down there. So I have 2 gigabyte DDR2 sticks. Lower profile. So 4 gigabytes works just fine for this thing. Now finally, I'm going to show you the video card. Now originally I had a GeForce 630 Ti or something, 630 Ti, and that's a pretty decent card. And the thing I wanted with this is I didn't want I didn't need a really powerful video card. I really didn't want to have a video card that had extra power connections. I just wanted something that could be powered off the PCIe bus. So I also wanted something that could just output audio and video through the HDMI port. So some of the like the 9000 and 8000 series of the GeForce cards, you have to have like an optical connector or something to get sound through the HDMI. So you really want to go with something that can output sound as well as video through the HDMI. So you want something like a GeForce 210 and up. Unfortunately, that 630, the GeForce 630 I had installed, it was unstable, and I don't know if it was because the card was damaged, because I did get it real cheap off Craigslist. I didn't know if it was the card that was messed up, or if it was a driver issue with OS 10 or what. So I ended up using this card that I already had, and this is just a Radeon card. It's a 1 gigabyte 64-bit HD 6450. I don't know a lot about the Radeon line of cards. I don't know much about this. I just know that it kind of suited my needs. Now this, from my research, is an entry-level card. So, again, don't expect to be playing, Fallout 4 on high settings and Witcher 3 and stuff like that. But, for the purpose of this box, streaming and retro Steam games, it runs just fine. And it does indeed output audio and video through the HDMI port. Another bonus is it's passively cooled, so that's one less fan. And if you've got something under the TV, it's kind of a media center machine. You don't really want it to be too loud. So far this card has worked without a hitch. So it's worked very well. So, I'm going to show you a little bit of game footage, just hooked up right here. I've been really, really lazy this week, so I don't think I'm going to do direct capture or anything. I'm probably just going to point the camera at the screen, but yeah, that's basically it. I put this thing together for about $100, give or take. Like I said, your mileage may vary. I already had this card, so that was a cost. It was already built in. Some of these pieces of RAM I already had. The hard drive I already had. So I didn't, really put much into this. Even the OS, Windows 10 is still, right as of now, available for free if you have 7, which I do, which I put on this initially. So, I didn't put much money into it. You might want to put more into it too, depending if you want a little bit more powerful graphics card and whatnot. But yeah, it can be done. You can build a decent home theater retro Steam machine on the cheap. The parts are readily available, so don't be too afraid to put it together. This will even play some like newer-ish stuff. I don't think, compatibility issues aside, I'm sure this thing would play like Fallout 3 just fine. Maybe even like New Vegas and stuff. Maybe not on ultra high settings. I haven't tested it, but you can still play stuff like decent PC games from 5 or 10 years ago on this machine just fine. It's just, the newest stuff on ultra settings and stuff isn't going to fly on it. But so, real quick for controllers, this is the controller I was using with it. It's a Gravis. It's a later Gravis. It's USB, and it's kind of PS1-ish reminiscent kind of controller. And it works pretty well. There's a lot of games it was compatible with, but there are also some that it just wasn't compatible with. So for a controller, I'm going to recommend just a wired Xbox 360 controller. This is third party, Rock Candy. I got this new at Walmart for $19.99. It's a pretty solid controller, but with the Xbox controllers, it seems like a lot of the Steam games just support them. They're kind of expecting this controller. So far, all the retro style digital download games I've used work just fine with this controller, and they seem to actually be tailored for 360 controller. So I would recommend something like this over like, this. So. Alright, so here we go with it's loading up. I told, as I said, I'm really lazy, so, a professional YouTube channel would probably direct capture this stuff, but I just kind of went the lazy route and pointed the camera at the TV. I think it does well enough giving the impression on what we can do here, how fast it works and everything. There's Windows 10, boots up really fast. So the first game coming up, this is Rogue Legacy. It's kind of like a roguish platformer type game that came out a couple years back. And basically, like when you die, you play as your heir. I don't actually go into the game here because it's not my game file, and I didn't want to like play it and mess it up. But here's the intro area before the castle, and you can see it scrolls and plays just fine. It looks just fine too. See how the light's flickering doing that? That's me doing it. I didn't realize some games weren't compatible with the Xbox 360 controller. There's a little option that pops up when you hit the middle button, lets you take screenshots and stuff. When a game isn't compatible, it just sort of flickers like that. Here's Retro City Rampage, another retro-style Steam game. Pretty fun. It's kind of like the early Grand Theft Auto games. I think most people have heard of this game because it was kind of high profile for an indie game not too long ago. A lot of cool options. This game actually knew that it was a third-party Rock Candy controller. I just assume most games would say, generic Xbox 360 controller or whatever, but this one knew exactly what it was, which I don't know. I find that a little bit weird because I don't know. It seems like a direct clone. Why it has its own thing or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, it's a pretty fun game. I don't know. I picked the A-Team van there. I didn't do it. I just did it without thinking. It was just the vehicle I grabbed. But yeah, retro 80s-ish there. But yeah, this is a pretty fun game. This is just the sandbox mode here. But like I said, it's like the early Grand Theft Auto games, as if it was done in an 8-bit NES style. There's actually some physical releases of this game. I have the DOS version, which is a little cut down, but it's amazing he got the game to run from a 1.44 megabyte floppy disk. It's just amazing. But yeah, it's a pretty fun game. And this PC runs it no problems, just fine actually. Here's another really fun game. This is Broforce. This is kind of like a parody game of 80s action films. I've cut through some of the parts on these videos, some of the loading and stuff. We don't need to see that, but yeah, here's the game. I mean, this is kind of an intense 2D style action platformer game, and it runs without a hitch on this PC, you know, despite the lower specs. All the explosion, no slowdown, everything, it runs. It looks just fine. Like I said, looking at it through the video camera, it doesn't really do the game any justice, because it looks just fine in real life. But it's a fun game. It's so fun, especially if you're like an 80s kid like me, and you know, you're really into like 80s and early 90s action films. This has parodies of all of those people with Bro in it. It's just Brodell Walker and Rambro, and it's, I don't know, it's just hilarious. It's a lot of fun. This is a great like pick up and play game, kind of like a shmup or a shooter game, non-first person shooter game, where those are just great games to pick up and play for a couple minutes and then you know, stop and come back to it later. And this game is really great for that. If you just want a quick play, you know, let off some steam, no pun intended, just play a game real quick. This game really fits the bill. It's really fun, especially if you get all the references to all the characters, which I do because, like I said, I love cheesy, campy 80s and 90s action films. A lot of like Stallone and like there's MacGyver. There he throws dynamite, turkey dynamites and stuff. I don't think it's finished yet. This game keeps coming up with patches and new people, and it keeps updating. It seems like it's pretty close to being completed. Okay, here's the Angry Video Game Nerd game. Yes, I go to Beat It and Eat It. This is kind of like a parody stage right here of his early reviews of the Atari adult games. If this is offensive to anyone, I'm sorry. It's not that I'm sorry that you get offended by badly pixelated Atari-style adult content. But yeah, I mean, it's an extremely difficult platforming game, and it runs just fine on this PC. And lastly, this is Super Wagon Adventure. This is kind of a parody. You notice they're all sort of parody games where they take heavy inspiration from other retail games, but this is kind of like a parody of Oregon Trail, which I assume most of us are familiar with. And yeah, it's really fun. It's kind of, the graphics are more Atari-ish style, I guess. I mean, obviously it looks a lot better than Atari, but it just, the feel and look is a little more Atari, early computer leaning than maybe NES. But again, it has a lot of fun options. It's fun. It's like kind of like a zany take on Oregon Trail, and you just crazy things you come across, like crazy, you know, power like that was just, I called it an airstrike. And here you're just going through shooting animals. You use the animals for like trade stuff. Here's bandits that attack. And it's another fun pick up and play shooter type game, just to kind of see how far you can get. It can be hard, but you know, I've had a couple games where I've got really far. I haven't beat this game yet, but I've gotten pretty far with it. If it looks weird on here, that's an effect of the game. It's kind of simulating a tube CRT, like a curved CRT. You can turn that effect off. So there are different effects, but if you're wondering why it looks extra weird with the curvature, that's why. It's just an effect of the game. So that's about it. So I hope I've given the idea that you can really put together a nice retro style Steam machine that works pretty well. So again, thank you for watching.